Welcome to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe and Dave. Be warned, the discussions in this podcast will contain detailed spoilers. For spoiler-free reviews of newly released films, please check out our channel Reviews Without Remorse on YouTube and VidMe. Enter at your own risk and enjoy the show.
Welcome to the show that communicates through time. I'm the comedic foil Costello, but you may call me David. And playing the part of my abbot, the greatest straight man you can find, Joe! Joe's portion's pre-recorded. This is episode 69, and in this show we will discuss Bumblebee, the little transformer that could has his own movie. I can hardly contain my delight. Is fifth time the charm? Bradley Cooper thinks so, and Joe and I will go over his directorial debut, the ever-remade A Star Is Born. And then, brush up on your linguistics, folks, because Joe and I take a dive into my favorite movie of 2016, Arrival. Just so you know, this show is pre-recorded. Joe is on a sabbatical, so it's just me, and all the segments that you're about to hear have been pre-recorded. So this is solo me for now, and let's get to the show.
Who are you? Do you speak?
So, who asked for this? Was there some kind of demand that I missed the memo on? What the hell?
Yeah, people keep spending money on this. I mean, it's like, I don't get it.
Okay, so let me tell you, let's talk about the one part of the trailer that actually made me squee. There's just one part. The entire trailer I'm watching, it's like, really? 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 And then there was one part where Starscream transformed into his original design from the original cartoon. That was it. That was it. That was all it took. And I was like, yes, that's awesome. Everything else was crap.
So you're talking about the yellow Bumblebee guy?
No, not Bumblebee. At one point, they show a jet transforming, and it's Starscream, and you can tell it's Starscream by the coloring. Ladies and gentlemen, I should probably throw in here that in the 80s, Joe was busy dating and having a good time, and I was home watching Transformers cartoons. So when the original 1980s Starscream showed up on the screen, I got very, very giddy for a couple of seconds, and then I remembered, oh, wait, this is still a Transformers movie in the Michael Bay style.
Mm. Yeah, this is a weird one because honestly, I'm watching this trailer and I'm saying to myself, like, I was Transformed out before they were like, a few movies in, I'm like, okay, we got it. And then after a few, I think I actually saw my first one. And I was like, oh my God, this is terrible. So I'm watching this one and I'm saying, well, this is interesting. They're trying to sort of, they called it a prequel.
Yes.
So they're trying to, and I guess they're trying to scale it down, dial it back to make it a little more of like a one-on-one personal story. And kind of, it almost looks like he's trying to sort of anti-Bay himself. Like all the destruction and just giant robots everywhere and just things going crazy and buildings falling down. We're going to dial it back and make a simple story. Now I'm saying to myself, okay, all right. Maybe I should be kind of just golf clapping, applauding very gently for that. Maybe this is a sincere attempt to make something a little more personal, a little more story driven. But then again, I'm saying to myself, but the people who are plunking down dollars to go watch these big Transformer movies, are they going to be happy with that?
I don't know. Liam seemed moderately interested, and he's definitely one of the ones that the movie was marketed towards. But it wasn't like he was, like chomping at the bit or anything like that. He was just kind of like, I like Bumblebee. And it's like, I know, everybody likes Bumblebee. But, I don't know, man. The problem is like, you've only seen one. I've seen them all. I have the trauma that I'm stuck with for the rest of my life. Your sympathy is noted and necessary. Okay, I've seen the horrors, and I as a Transformers fan, I'm kind of like blah 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 blah. Robots hitting each other, yay! And after a while, it's blah blah blah. Robots hitting each other, yay! So I really can't muster up a lot of excitement. I do appreciate that they're trying to go for the quote-unquote classic style of the Transformers, hearkening it back to their humble origins with the look of both Bumblebee. I mean, Bumblebee still has to have that, Michael Bay-esque look, but they at least went back to his VW Beetle as his first form, which I was happy with. I was nice to see Starscream in his original form and his original guise. So that part of me was kind of curious, but other than that, it was just a whole lot of meh.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, the effects look good. I'll give you that. I mean, the CGI looked pretty spot on, but that's all I got. That's all I got for this one. I will reserve judgment. Again, surprise me.
Maybe it's time to let the old ways die. Maybe it's time to let the old ways die. Takes a lot to change, man. Hell, it takes a lot to try.
Man, in the old days, I always knew, you were gonna do something, that you'd be all right. It's the first time I'm worried about you.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, this is one that I asked Joe to talk about. I don't necessarily know if this is his cup of tea or not, so I'm apologizing in advance to both the audience and to Joe. That said, the reason why I want to go over A Star is Born, the trailer, this is a movie that has been remade 4 times. This, I think, is the 5th incarnation of this particular story. And it's one of those things that they basically have been trying to make goodness. I think the last one was in the 80s with Chris Christopherson and Barbra Streisand.
That rings a bell, but I cannot confirm, yeah. Okay.
I remember it because it was one of those R-rated movies that was on HBO and it had boobies in it. That's how I remember it mostly. And I thought 1 or 2 of the songs were pretty good, but that's besides the point. Since about, I'd say, 2000, they've been talking about remaking this. First, it was going to be Beyonce, and then it was going to be Whitney Houston or something along those lines. All these years, they were going to finally make it. Well, they finally made it. It is the directorial debut of Bradley Cooper, who, in a case of, why not, he cast himself in the lead as a country singer, and has Lady Gaga playing the part of the ingenue, I guess, or ingenue, or whatever you want to call it. And I'm telling you, Joe, I kind of found myself a little compelled by the trailer. I thought it was kind of a nice modern take on it.
Listen,
if you're gonna take away my man card, I've got it right here.
Listen, first of all, I will say this: 2 things. A, when I watched the trailer and I saw Bradley Cooper as a country singer, and then he gets into his car, and the first thing he does is swig a thing of whiskey, I went Oscar bait.
Yeah, for sure.
Having said that, first of all, when you just said when the words Lady Gaga came out of your mouth, I just went, oh, I did not realize that's who that was.
Really?
I had no clue.
That's kind of impressive.
Well, again, she's one of those. Again, I feel like I'm sort of falling into the. She's one of those who has a different look every time you turn around, and it's kind of almost rare that you actually see her without makeup and costume and stuff. Mm-hmm. And so I've only really even seen this woman a handful of times. And this was completely not her look at all. I mean, they made her look very different.
Right.
But I will say this. Honestly, I kind of didn't know where... there was a part of me that was already getting mildly annoyed when the whole gist of like she's a great singer, but he wants to put her on stage or whatever, and she says something about like people don't like how she looks or she's too ugly or something or other. And I'm looking at her going like, oh, come on. Like typical, they're going to put lipstick and makeup on her and she's going to be beautiful and whatever. Like, I mean, you could tell by looking at her when she was all made up to be like frumpy that she's still an attractive woman under there. So again, I was already kind of like going, oh, brother, here we go. Having said that, the moment where she does start singing in the trailer, like they do pull her on stage, she does sing, and you're like, oh my gosh, she could really belt it out. Again, I didn't know who this was. Yeah. So the fact that she actually like could sing, I kind of literally did kind of go, oh wow, they're good. They're not kidding. This lady can sing. It's got potential. Bradley Cooper again is pretty good in almost everything. I really can't think of a bad performance that he's ever done. And so, hey, why not? If he's directing and this is what he wanted to do, and it could happen. I mean, it could work. I mean, again, I've never seen Lady Gaga. I think she's been in like American Horror Story and a couple just little weird things.
Yeah, a couple of things like that. She was in Machete, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, Robert Rodriguez has used her like twice. I think she was in Sin City as well.
I think you're right.
The second one, yeah.
Yeah. So she's been in kind of sort of like fun, goofy things. I don't think she's ever really done like a serious, drama or anything. So it'll be interesting to see how she pulls this one off.
Right.
It looked fine. It looked like a great movie.
It's typical. It's Oscar bait.
It is Oscar bait, but again, that doesn't mean it's bad.
That's true.
Just because I'm paranoid doesn't mean they're not allowed to get me. So yeah, saying. Listen, I won't dock your man card for this one. I definitely think it could easily shape up to be a pretty quality film.
I agree. It has potential. I wouldn't. I don't know. I date night. Do I date? I don't date. I don't know what I do. I'm not sure what I am. I don't know who I am anymore. I watched it on a lark and I was charmed by it. I really was. And I've known that she could sing. She was classically trained. She just went into a different direction with music and everything like that. And that's why you kind of, you almost don't want to take somebody like that seriously when they're a pop star. But she actually can sing. So that was nice to see.
Oh yeah, listen, she's been somebody again. It's not my genre, it's not my thing, but I remember even sort of like anytime I'm sort of hearing what the kids are listening to today, and I'm rolling my eyes like the curmudgeon that I am.
Get off my lawn.
When she's on, I know it's good music. Like even if it's not my style, I can hear that this is somebody who puts like work and really understands music. It's not just somebody who had music written for her and blah 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 and put a beat behind it and it works.
Right, Madonna.
Yeah, I mean it's not auto tune, it's not whatever. I mean like I said, she does quality work. So again, I have a hard time sort of knocking anything that she's done really. And again, I mean and plus I like the fact that I think she like her whole career she's had this sort of again. I didn't really buy her as being like the ugly duckling in the trailer exactly, but I guess when she was growing up, she was sort of a goofball or just not very pretty or something. So when she does her show, she's got she's got a thing about telling kids, don't be so worried about how you look, you're gonna blossom, and don't worry about the kids who make fun of you or whatever. So I mean, again, she's a positive person. So I really have nothing to crack on her about. So yeah, I mean, like I said, it could very well be pretty good. I'm curious to see what Bradley Cooper can do.
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Joe is not curmudgeoning on something modern.
Hey, we've got a couple empty slots at the end of the year. For all we know, this could be one of the ones we're talking about.
There are days that define your story beyond your life, like the day they arrived.
Colonel?
Pack your bags.
Language is the first weapon drawn in a conflict.
It's quite a greeting.
Yeah, well, he wrote it.
You are on the top of everyone's list when it comes to translations.
Priority 1. What do they want? Where are they from?
A linguist is recruited by the military to communicate with alien life forms after 12 mysterious spacecrafts land around the world. Written by Eric Heiserer, based on the story by Ted Chiang, directed by Denis Villeneuve. Arrival.
Dave's number one movie of 2016, if I remember correctly.
Yes, it was my number one movie of 2016. And I will just, I'm going to be up front that one of the things I said about the movie was that the ending of this movie crushed me when I first saw it. During the rewatch, it crushed me again. So what we have here is your very intelligent, sophisticated science fiction movie. The idea that aliens have come and they want to communicate, but the language barrier is huge, like really, really huge. So they bring in the Louise Banks character, played by Amy Adams, to try and help decipher their language. And I'm just going to say this. You have a very, 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 very simple story that moves in a 1 hour and 56-minute film. Moves well. Is compelling. I mean, even the slow parts of the movie I found just compelling as hell, personally. I've kind of gushed all over this movie enough, so I'm going to turn it over to you, and I'd like to hear some of your thoughts, Joe.
I think the slow parts that actually move, I think that has everything to do with the direction of this film. I think the director really does a phenomenal job with this film. I went back and looked at his IMDb today, and just to kind of refresh my memory on some of the things he had done, and he had some tremendous films that he's done. I mean, his list is pretty short, but the things he's done were really, honestly, all of them are the kinds of films, again, that are sort of on the surface pretty slow moving. If you had to explain it to somebody else, they'd be like, tell me why you want me to watch this. But they're compelling. I mean, they really do sort of draw you in. I'm going to forget the name of one of them.
Here are his biggest movies. In 2010, he did Incendies. In 2013, he had two movies, one called Enemy, one called Prisoners, which is an outstanding flick.
Those are the two I was kind of, but go ahead.
Yeah, and then you had Sicario in 2015, and after Sicario came this.
Yeah. Enemy was one. Prisoners, I think Prisoners I saw first. And yes, wow, was that, again, not a gigantic subject, not something that, these are pitches that take very short amounts of time in the pitching process. But yeah, I thought Enemy was absolutely compelling, absolutely amazing. And then Enemy, again, that's a movie, you watch that and you're sort of, again, not sure what the hell is going on the entire time. And then by the time you get to the end, you're just like, what was that? I don't know if you saw that one, but when you get to the ending, there's a weird, strange twist ending that really does sort of, I don't know. Either it sort of just changes genres at the last second, or makes you realize that this has not been what it seems all along.
Right.
And I found it to be amazing. I know a lot of people were kind of like, what? But I absolutely loved it. So now you start to get to these films, and this one is absolutely tremendous, and every minute it's hard to turn away from the screen, even though, like you said, it's not exactly it's not short attention span theater. It takes its time, and it delivers something in an amazingly compelling way. I find this film to be pretty spectacular. I remember I think when you put it on your list, I don't think I had even seen it yet.
Yeah.
I think that when I did my top 10, I hadn't seen it yet, and then you did yours, and you put this on your top 10 or whatever, and I think I had just seen it because of your recommendation, but I remember I missed half of it or something. But yeah, having watched it subsequently, I absolutely completely agree with you that this is an absolutely amazing film. And and incidentally, by the way, the cast is great. Again, Jeremy Renner is a guy who I never gave a lot of credit to. But he's very good in this. Amy Adams, I think, is the one that really does a spectacular job in this film. And quite frankly, when we did my think piece for the year, Mother, I said that I thought, as much as I'm not a big fan of Jennifer Lawrence, I kind of felt like I didn't know if anybody else could have done that part as just quite the way she did. I tell you what, I think Amy Adams could have done it spectacularly.
Yeah.
And she's an actress I never gave a lot of credit to, but I think in here, boy, is she good. She is really good in this. There is there's a quiet sort of, you don't know what she's feeling at different times, and I think another actress could have not handled that as well.
100%. I'm going to agree with you on that. This was kind of her. I've always felt like she's a good actress. I've never found her to be completely compelling. In this, the subtlety of her, the range of her emotions. I mean, this is a movie that basically plays with time as you go along. And she's getting these feelings, she's getting these visions every once in a while, and you're thinking that these visions that we don't realize it at the point that they're visions. We think they're memories, and she's reacting to them in a relatively believable way, but slightly odd, slightly different. Not what you would expect a person remembering their dying, her dying daughter's memories are, in that way. But like it was affecting her, but not quite. There was just a way, and it turns out there was a reason for that, and it's just outstanding when that happened, because I was like, really? That's an amazing range for an actress to show, because you have to rely not just on you gotta do it in a way that when people watch it subsequently, which I did, are able to say, that's why.
Right.
But as you're watching it, you're not suspecting anything that is going on. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
You have. Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Completely. No, I completely agree. And again, I always feel compelled at some point when we start to get into the fun parts of the films to shout spoilers. If you haven't seen it, go see it. Because this, we're going to get right into the spoilers, because the twists and turns that this film takes, again, don't listen and don't rob yourself of the fun of going through it. So if you haven't seen it, go see it. Having said that, because again, it toys with you because you assume that you're watching things in a linear progression. It starts out with her with the daughter, playing around with the daughter and everything, and then the tragedy of losing this daughter at a very young age to a disease. And then, of course, you see her kind of schlepping around her university, teaching her classes and not the fun. Like, she went from having tickle fights with the daughter to now, we went through the death of the daughter, and now we're seeing her just in her everyday routine. So we assume now that she's, this is post, a tragedy, and now she's sort of just living quietly by herself. It's not until much later in the film, and quite frankly, there is a moment where you realize, wait a second, something is really wrong here. There's something I'm not understanding, because it's not until much later in the film when she's talking to the aliens when she says, "I don't understand. Who is this little girl?" And you kind of go, "What? What do you mean? Who's this little girl?" And then that's when it hits you, and it's interesting because, again, it kind of like, I don't know if I'd call them little hints necessarily, because there's really no reason for you to think that these are anything more than just little flashbacks of her and her daughter. But once you get to that part and you realize you're missing something, and that this is in the future, you're like, oh, whoa, holy! I mean, that really does sort of, that is incredible. That is a fantastic twist, and I almost feel like it's almost unfair to call it a twist. This is not an M. Night Shyamalan, like, hey, what a twist. This is something that is kind of with you throughout this whole film that you just sort of take for granted. And it's not until this point that you go, whoa, all right, like you've been reading it differently. And that to me is again, the whole film, I think the whole themes of the film, one, the more obvious theme is language and communication, but the other theme that's sort of playing in the background is the sort of the linearness of time. And the whole thing has been like, time to this alien race is not what we see as time. You know,
Right.
it's different, and I thought that was, once you get to that realization, and again, you're so focused on the language aspect of this communication process that you're not even realizing, like, oh, there's something bigger behind the scenes happening here that is sort of happening all along that we're not quite seeing, and then it reveals itself. You know, so I mean, you really do. There is a lot of wow moments in this film.
One of the things I didn't notice the first time I saw the movie, and only when I watched it today, she doesn't start having the quote-unquote flashbacks of the girl, of Hannah, of her daughter, until she has seen the aliens and she's taken her hazmat suit off. It wasn't until after that the first vision hits.
Ah, okay. And I didn't catch that.
Yeah, so I love the little subtle things about this movie. There's that. They don't put it in your face. At one point, there's a bomb in the damn room. They show the clock ticking at the beginning of the scene, and then they don't even refer to it again until it's down to like 1 minute.
Yes, yeah.
Which I thought was that was such a brilliant way to do it. It's like, they could have easily built the tension based on the bomb going off, but instead, the tension of the scene was focused on trying to understand each other, which was a beautiful way to do it.
Right.
And another thing that I loved about that scene, and you had the two aliens. The two aliens are called Abbott and Costello. When they went to see them for the last time, Costello was there, but Abbott was like kind of lurking in the background. Mm-hmm. And then at the last minute, Abbott comes to the forefront, and Abbott's doing the communicating, and then Costello takes off. And they're like, what the heck is going on? And the bomb goes off, Abbott sends them out of the way, and basically Abbott dies. So, when I was first watching it, it's like, what the... And then when the whole thing with time and everything like that came into element, you suddenly realize Abbott knew this was how he dies. So he was hiding in the background, kind of like mustering his courage for what he knew he had to do, and then came forward, saved her life anyway, even though he knew he was going to die because of this. Came forward and saved their life. When that blew my damn mind. And then when the ending comes, and that ties into the ending, which we're going to get to because we definitely have to talk about the ending. That type of stuff just blew my mind once the entire revelation came down. And the revelation at the end, it was like a 5-minute montage to kind of like, give the final pieces of the puzzle for the rest of the audience if they hadn't quite figured it out, even though it was pretty damn obvious what it was. But that's okay. I'm not going to complain about that. But they built these wonderful characters, and it's kind of weird because you think that the Amy Adams character, Louise, is so aloof because of losing the child and everything like that, and and so dour and everything like that. And in the end, it's just that she's just a bored academic, terrified of this new situation that she's run into. It changes like the way you even perceive the character. Even the people in this movie that are supposed to be quote unquote the bad guys aren't really bad guys. You kind of feel for them. The guys that set the bomb on the damn thing, it's like you kind of understand why they're doing that. You understand the paranoia. They don't really. There's not an antagonist really in this movie. There's conflict, but not an antagonist. Nobody here says something that I think in this situation wouldn't be brought up and wouldn't be right bringing up.
Yeah, I would say that that's true. And I mean, they even go as far as to show, I guess they're trying to show you sort of public opinion, and they cut to like, what I suppose is supposed to be like a right wing extremist radio show, and talks about
with
how
the show of force thing. Yeah,
we need to fire one across the bow and everything. And again, you can understand why that would be. You people are sitting there. I mean, what is one of the things that's amazing about this film and the design of it? I mean, the simple design of the ships, but I love the idea, again, as opposed to something like, Independence Day or whatever, where the big, obvious looking spaceship comes down, and is hovering or whatever. This thing it comes down and it just sort of hangs there, and it's not only is it hanging there, but it's lopsided. Like it's it's almost like a half an egg shape, where not only should it not be able to suspend itself without any sort of show of force, something to defy the gravity to hold it there, but it holds there kind of lopsided. Like by all, we look at it as if it should be tipping over, but it's not. So again, it just goes to show like that, that it's beyond what we comprehend and what we understand. So yeah, I mean, to have those things come to Earth, just more or less sit there, and to very, very, very slowly start to communicate in a painfully slow way. Sure, your average person is going to get terrified. They're going to say, we have no clue why this thing is sitting there. Again, we don't see it doing anything. So whatever it's doing it's sort of happening behind the scenes. They say if these things are communicating with each other, they're doing it in a way that we cannot pick up at all. There's no radio waves, no nothing. So again, we're just sitting there. Are we sitting here just watching and waiting? And as this thing, again, imagine you're like a native, an aborigine who never saw the barrel of a gun before, and it's the first person to sit there and look down the barrel looking dumb, like, wonder what that thing is going to do, I suppose that's this is the feeling going through people's minds. Like, are we just sort of sitting there while this thing slowly plots to destroy us or whatever? So yeah, you're right. There's no bad guys per se. I mean, there's certainly some in the short term. Like there are antagonists. I mean, every time she's in the room arguing, she's like, do I have to listen to this guy or whatever? Does this guy have to be here or whatever? So you know who she likes and who she doesn't like, who she can reason with and not. But yeah, for the most part, everybody has a pretty reasonable point.
Yeah. The CIA guy, he's got a point. The Chinese general, he's got a point. There's even the right-wing guy kind of has a point. And then at one point they talk about how there's protesting in Washington about the way, about not trusting the government to be able to handle the way the aliens are. All these things are all valid points, and it balanced, relatively well balanced. Thanos would love this movie.
There you go. There you go.
I found it to be one, and I liked all the characters that they focused on. I liked Forrest Whitaker. I liked how in a way he had to be the audience to us. That he was our representative of the audience, and as our representative, we couldn't have done too bad. When she's trying to explain things, like when she tells the story about the kangaroo.
Yes.
That was a great moment in the movie to help really, because when it comes to linguistics, people, I will be the first to admit that when it comes to the nuance of linguistics, I didn't have near the appreciation of it as I did until after I saw this movie.
Agreed.
I mean, even the test that she did, where she was like, ask the guy from Berkeley for the original Sanskrit for the word war.
Yes. Yeah.
And it never occurred to me. It's like, wow, okay, yes, that's true. Language evolves. Language is different through the years. That's a great moment.
Absolutely, yeah. No, you're absolutely right. I love that stuff. I mean, the part where when she puts the sentence on the whiteboard and she says, "What is your purpose here?" She goes, "Look, this is what you want to know, right? Yes. Okay. Well, for starters, we have to explain that this is a question, a request for knowledge. That's A. We have to explain this part, your plural, collective. We have to explain that. I mean, it really, when you do break it down like that, you go, oh yeah. It really was, again, a great thinking man's film. And there was another part where she's talking to Forrest Whitaker, and I'm trying to remember if it was the part you mentioned already. What was it again? Please do a little editing, by the way.
Of course.
But she says something to him, and it just made me go like, oh my God, wow, that was incredible.
There were a couple of moments. He definitely, like I said, because Forrest Whitaker's character represented the audience, he gave her the opportunity to explain, the parts of linguistics you have to explain.
Yes.
You just mentioned the part where she put up about the thing. And then she at another point, she was trying to explain how kangaroos got their nickname because in the Aboriginal language, kangaroo meant I don't understand.
Right. Exactly.
When they asked what that animal was.
Right.
There were lots of little moments like that that just worked.
Yeah.
and I'm not 100% sure which other scene you might be talking about, because there was like 3 main scenes where she kind of schooled him, and by proxy the audience, with regards to language. There was that wonderful scene that you just described where she wrote on the board about what the question was. There was the thing where I said about the kangaroo, and I think there was one other scene, but I can't remember the specifics of that scene at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But you're right. But the point stands that Forrest Whitaker does. He did serve as the great, straight man. Explain this to me, and he's the one we have to explain things to. So yeah, as the audience, she's explaining to all of us what the hell is, what's going on, what is involved in the process.
Mm-hmm. And thank you for not going to the whole trope of English, please. I'm so tired of that trope.
Right? Yeah. Seriously. Right. Yeah, and incidentally, by the way, there was a couple things I noticed in this at the second go around. For one thing, I remember the first time I saw it, I didn't know if I was crazy about the design of the aliens. Mm-hmm. And again, I know they're trying to go for something that is just way out there. Again, we don't want humanoids walking out saying we come in peace or whatever. This is a different kind of a film. It wasn't until she walks up and puts her hand on the glass that I really started to notice, you know what? Her hand, with the hand going up and the 5 fingers up in the air, the design of the alien was almost like a mirror opposite, or like it was upside down, almost like a playing card where the other side was coming down the other way. Right. It almost looked like a palm, the outside of a palm with fingers coming down.
Right.
So, I mean, they really did look like hands. They looked like hands coming down with sort of like a little head on it. It was pretty. I thought that was pretty clever, actually.
I thought it was a great little design. Alien enough, but not like too over the top. Yet still easy on the eyes, compelling for the eyes, so to speak. Uh-huh. Their way of communicating, I digged.
Yes.
I digged.
Yeah.
I just, the little ink blots that kind of sit up there and indicate language. How freaking awesome of an idea is that? Yeah. I love that imagination. And even, this movie had a team of like linguists and cryptographers and everything like that basically come up with that alien language. Mm-hmm. So that alien language is kind of real now.
Yeah, I can imagine. I don't doubt it. I mean, they did seem to put a lot of effort into it. I mean, there was things that when they zoomed in on it. Plus, of course, when at one point I guess what he was doing was spurting out the entire language.
Yeah.
In one shot.
He did the info dump. Costello took off. Abbott did the info dump real quick. The bomb blew up after they made sure that they saw the image and then went on. Yeah.
I remember I wasn't sure what was happening there, because when I first saw it, I thought, like, I mean, he was hitting the glass, which he had never done before, mm-hmm. which I took to mean, okay, you got to go. Goodbye, go. He was trying to say, shoo, go away. So I didn't know if the burst of the language on this, I didn't know if that meant, if that was more just a cry, like get the hell out, like he's saying go or something rather. But later on you realize, like, okay, well that was the entire language basically.
Yeah, they did a giant info dump just to be like, okay, this is the last we're gonna be able to talk. So this is all I got for you. Right. You're gonna have to figure it out.
If this is the last time we speak, take it and run. Yeah.
Yeah. Take it. Now get the hell out of here, please.
Yeah.
And hell, they even established that. They established that right at the beginning when they talked about how the craft they're only in there for like X amount of hours before it looks like they have to replete with oxygen or something along those lines. Yeah. And that they would basically slowly lower the people out once the time was up.
Yes.
So when they hint towards that, so that when the time comes and the bomb is exploding and they kick them out, There it is. That's the layers that they build in this movie is just amazing. Every single step seems to lead to someplace else. Which brings me to the ending.
Mm-hmm.
So, Joe.
Yeah.
You have just been shown the future. You have just been shown that the man that you have just met, or let's just say the girl that you have just met, you're going to marry her, you're going to have a kid, the kid's going to live to 12, maybe 13 years old, and die. You know that that's about to happen.
Mm.
Do you still do it?
That is a very difficult question. Very difficult question. Yeah, I don't know. Well, I'll tell you what. Let me just as a way to duck the question for a second.
Duck away.
First of all, I was very pleasantly surprised. Again, we always talk about smart sci-fi. What do they all have in common? There's always a tragedy in the beginning. Somebody dies, somebody this, somebody that.
Right.
So I remember the first time I saw this, saying to myself, "Oh, here's that typical, tragedy at the beginning of the story or whatever." So I was very, very pleasantly surprised to see that was sort of turned on its head, and that this was not a typical, this tragedy did not kick off the film. It was more, it was something that happens later and whatever. Having said that, yeah, it almost makes the tragedy twice as difficult, because this is tragedy we haven't lived through yet. I mean, we lived through it once by seeing seeing it in the beginning, but now we're going to go through it again a second time. And like you said, and now we actually have to make a choice to live through it or not.
Yes, keep going. I'm sorry.
Well, and once you know that this is coming, that this is part of your life, do you still go forward with it? And I don't know. I mean, it's a weird situation, because, boy, this is, on one hand, I'm saying to myself, well, first of all, one of the questions I walked away with the first time I saw it was, being able to see the future, does that mean that you no longer have the ability to change the future? That you can't change what's going to happen?
They don't really toy with that in this movie.
No, they don't. They sure don't. They pretty much imply that this is what's going to happen, and well, actually, I take it back. They don't imply that you don't have a choice. As a matter of fact, they very much do imply that you have a choice, because the whole reason that she breaks up with Jeremy Renner at the end or in the future was because he said that she made the wrong choice.
Yes, I remember that. That resonates so much the second time you see the movie, because you don't realize at this point that this is a choice.
Yeah,
that's not the point in the movie where you realize that the choice that he's talking about, and her reaction to her confessing to her daughter what he said was just, oh my God, how did this woman not get a goddamn Oscar for that scene alone?
Yeah,
and the way that it I don't know. I don't know how the hell that they managed to do this, man. They just made me question so many things just watching this. The whole, like you said, when he says, you made the wrong choice. And then one of the last lines in the movie is him asking her, do you want to make a baby? And her response is yes. During the big montage where they show the three of them and a happy life and stuff like that, and she's like, yes. And that's just watching that montage of happiness that's going to turn to pain is what kills me every time I watch that movie.
Yes. And again, it's you have to understand also the gravity of the choice, because, again, not only, put it this way, Jeremy Renner is not only angry at her because of the pain that they will go through losing the child, but they're also talking about the pain that the child herself will go through.
Yeah.
The child has this deliberating fatal disease. The child goes through this at the end. You can see that there is suffering involved. So, that is also part of the big choice. Do you deny the child life? Do you deny the child the laughs and the joy that they will experience during life because they can see the pain at the end? I would assume most of us are. It's a rarity that you sort of just fade away in your sleep and you never suffer. Most of us are going to have something at the end that's unpleasant. Is that enough to say we shouldn't have this child? In her mind, she's saying no. It's not enough to not have the child. He's saying something else. But it's all part of the whole. Wow. It's all part of that decision making.
See, and this is one of the things I like. Another thing I like about the movie, because there's a philosophical level that's just, did she now have the kid? The kid lived long enough to bring her joy and happiness and then heartbreak. Okay? So, and the child suffered for many years after, was in terrible pain and everything. At what point does a choice like that become selfish?
Right.
That was the first thought that popped into my head. It's like, if you know that this child is not going to be anything more than forever 12 or 13 years old, if you know that those last year or so is going to be agonizing pain, not just for you, but for them as well.
Sure.
Why would you go through with that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, but then again, that is sort of, I mean, if anything, I look at this as nothing more than just an extension of a discussion of life itself. And frankly, I mean, how many parents have said, I can't have a child with the world the way it is today? And, I'll tell you a personal story. I remember years ago, there was a friend of mine who was looking for a daycare for her child. And I remember speaking to the woman who ran the place, and she said something along the lines of like, I know how it is, the whole, how can I bring a child up in the world the way it is today kind of thing. She goes, but you have to understand, it doesn't change. Your parents were born in the middle of Vietnam, in the middle of one of the most, the craziest times in modern American history. She goes, and their parents, it was World War II. It was the Depression. Like, why would you bring a child into the world the way? And again, it's always going to be something. It's always going to be something that made you say, do I want my child to forever live, in this world and potentially be hurt, potentially suffer? So, so when you think about it, how is this decision any different? If you have a child with the risk that they could someday have a disease. They could be born with cancer. They could be born, with developmental issues. There's all kinds of things that would come into the whole decision-making process that are there. Again, we just can't see the future. So in some ways, we just have a luxury of not having to ask ourselves these hard questions, or just asking them in a basic, fundamental sort of way, but without actually getting into specifics. So yeah, I mean, I sort of applaud this film for having that kind of, I mean, it's a gutsy sort of situation to throw at somebody and say, here you go. It's not hypothetical. This child will have a disease at some point in her young life, and she will die early. Do you still go through with it? And again,
and it will cost you your marriage as well.
There you go. Right. This child will. Yeah. Do you? I mean, and that's the thing too. I mean, it's interesting because part of one of the things that I walked away with, I said to myself, okay, well, if she can see the future, she has the feelings, she has the memories, she has all of that. Do you have to still go through it? Do you have to still go through and make it happen? Like maybe you'd lose those memories if you didn't actually go through with it. Maybe because the future changes, maybe you don't have that perception. Maybe being able to see the future, you don't commit that to memory the way we commit our actual experiences to memory. So maybe if she decided not to have the child, she would lose all consciousness that the child ever existed. So, there's a thought too. Like, could you just live on the memories? Or maybe the memories don't exist anymore. But B, maybe it's not enough. Maybe you have to still go through it. And even if it sort of feels to us, the audience, like she'd be sort of living it twice, well, not really.
I don't know, man. It's a Sophie's choice that I am glad I never have to make.
Yeah. This is definitely one of those movies where I'm glad I really don't smoke weed, because if I did, boy, this sucker would keep me up until daylight thinking about everything.
I live in Seattle. I did not smoke weed before I saw this movie, and it still kept me up at night.
There you go too.
I still pondered the ever living hell out of it. I couldn't shake it. I just was. It's and you know it's a simple question. It's a question that parents get asked all the time. There are tests that they have for children. It's like, okay, the test results here says that there's like an X amount of percent of a chance that your child could have cerebral palsy. Okay,
right.
Here, early enough that you could do something about it, and by do something about it, abort the child. And I couldn't imagine a parent having to do something like that. And now you're talking about a situation where you have the memories of a lifetime with this child, that are just figments.
Yeah.
And with a tragic ending. Here's my first thought is at the time Mother wasn't out, but I'm going to use it as an example since it's the most recent movie we saw.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mother to me is the example. I am really glad I saw that movie. I don't feel like I ever need to see it again.
Right.
All right. The extreme example, but it still kind of fits the mold. Okay. I have lived that in my mind, but I guess the question really is has she lived it in her heart?
Right.
Because her not being able to, who is this girl that I keep seeing? There's not an emotional connection with that character. That's just a visual representation. It's like she's watched a movie.
Yeah.
So maybe, in a way, it is easier to make that type of connection. My God, are we getting into a huge philosophical debate, sir?
Well, we are. We absolutely are. In fact, you're really getting me thinking even further. Because honestly, in some ways, just to illustrate the uniqueness of the situation that this director has put forward. I think today, because of the advances in science that we have today, a doctor is able to tell a parent, your child will be born, but it will be born with a certain defect or a certain issue, a certain medical problem. And today, parents have the choice to not go through with the pregnancy based on that knowledge. Right. But here in this story, it really presents that situation in an entirely different light because it's, okay, you have the knowledge, but we're also going to show you the happiness and the love and the joy that child will bring you. That taints that decision, don't it? It certainly makes it a lot. It's not it's not the hands-off kind of a decision that a parent could possibly make. I mean, I'm not, and again, a parent today without that sort of knowledge still makes a very difficult choice. But you add this level to it. You add the level of the knowledge of what that child will bring to your life and what you will bring to her life in the time she's got. Hell, that's, again, talk about a seriously difficult decision, a difficult crossroads.
Exactly. And this is the part of the brilliance of this movie because you say to yourself, there are these scenes where there's just kind of these slow moments, where there are these tiny character moments and everything like that. And yet, all of these scenes add up to this ending. So that when the character says, you want to have a baby, and she says yes, it coalesces from the entire thing. It's an informed consent scene. And even when she says yes, there's a heartbroken sound in her voice. It's not like the elation you would expect from somebody who wants to have a baby. She's like, yes, I want this, but I'm bracing myself.
Yeah.
And, for something that's just a gosh darn alien invasion movie, quotes.
Right.
Who the heck thought we would have spent the last 10 minutes discussing this little philosophical level?
Yeah. Well, again, it just goes to show that I think the best films will appeal to your mind and your heart. And again, this hurts. This hits you on a personal level like no other. I mean, on a personal level that I can't think of anything. Again, it's very hard to compare this film with that particular ending to much of anything else. I mean, again, it's very incredibly unique in its story. Yeah. And again, incidentally, we kind of haven't even really gotten to. I mean, there was more to the twist, by the way, of her actually, like, once she realized she was given the ability to see the future, that also gives her the ability to contact the Chinese general to basically communicate and to get them to sort of stand down and to come, to dial it back and save the day, basically. And again, I love how they do that, where the future that needs to happen to make this work. Again, she actually needed to meet him in person and to get this information from him in the future. That was pretty interesting, because I said to myself, I was like, okay, now this general has to know enough to play along now, or else this doesn't work. You know, like, he has to give her that knowledge later for her to be able to recite it back to him now in the present.
And oh god, I even loved how they got it across. She's having a flashback memory, and you have to wonder how much the aliens could actually control of letting her see the past, because at one point she has this memory of Hannah saying, like, you know, hey, what do you call it when it's like two people, you know, having you know, but, you know, coming to an end, it's like, you know, like a draw or something like that. And, you know, he's like, no, something more sciencey. And she asks a little bit bitterly, well, ask your father, he's the scientist. And then she starts to go up the stairs, and it comes back to the present, and there is, you know, nice little foreshadowing too, there is Jeremy Renner's character, Ian, saying a zero-sum game. And she goes right back into the memory and says it. Yes. That just
well,
was like...
But again, it's not a memory, though.
Exactly. That's the point.
Right. I mean, she's not going into the past. This is not a memory. This is still yet to happen. So, yeah, it's... You're right. I mean, it's all the things sort of intertwining. And you're right. You're saying to yourself, well, wait. How is this? Yeah. It really was amazing.
Outstanding. Because it implied it made the audience at first think that, she was remembering the first time she used the zero-sum point when he first mentioned it, but it was the other way around. It was making it seem like the scene that was actually happening with the aliens was the thing that informed that future scene, but it was completely the other way around. And then it informs later when she's remembering, so to speak, meeting the general in the future and him telling her the dying wife's words.
Yeah.
So that he would listen to her.
Yeah.
Just, you know, here's my phone number. This is my private number. Nobody in the world has this.
Right? Yeah.
You know? Just, God.
It really, I mean, again, talk about, one of the greatest things that you can ask for in a film. Going back to when I was raving about Mother, you know, when we talked about that one, I said, you know, A, it's airtight, and B, it just keeps you thinking afterwards. It keeps you thinking for a long time afterwards, trying to understand everything you saw, and you really can't ask for more than that.
Signs of what might be called first contact. The objects measure at least...
I'm Colonel G.T. Weber from Army Intelligence. Pack your bags. You're at the top of everyone's list when it comes to translations.
Priority 1. What do they want? Where are they from? You'll be reporting to me, but you'll be working with him when you're in the show. That's what they call him, the UFO.
It's time.
It is that time, isn't it?
Yes, it is. We've hit the mark, sir. 50 minutes. Joseph, my man.
What do we got I'm going to probably surprise you, and I'm going to give this one a 10.
I'm not surprised, actually. Go on.
I mean, it's one of those where it just fires on all cylinders. It's a brilliant concept, a brilliant execution. I really can't, it does sort of, reach epic proportions, frankly. I mean, this is end of the world sort of stuff happening.
With no action. Let's point that out.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, it's... So, yeah, I really... And again, just a film that sets out exactly what it wants to do. It does it brilliantly. And, again, this is a brilliant director who has done brilliant stuff. And, you know, this one's... It is an absolute masterpiece. I can't... If you ask me to find something wrong with it, I sure as hell can't think of anything.
And I looked, because I also gave it a 10. Because I couldn't find anything wrong with it, even this second time through.
Yeah.
And I wanted to find something, just like with oh my God, why can't I remember what the heck it was? Deadpool. Just like with Deadpool, I wanted to find something wrong with it, but the movie kind of explained itself enough that I was like, okay, that's fine. But this movie more so. More so. This was tightly plotted, well edited, brilliantly acted, solid screenplay, perfect special effects, amazing smart people working in the background to convince you of the living, breathing nature of these aliens. Like, movies sometimes spend so much money trying to convince you, this is a real person, so on and so forth. Thanos is kind of like that.
Right.
I didn't doubt a single thing about any of these creatures at any point in the movie. Okay? Yeah. And every single accomplishment she made, every moment of private yes was because they learned a damn word. They learned a damn word.
Right.
How often can you say to yourself, I got excited by a scene in a movie, not because Daniel LaRusso did the crane or anything like that, but because they learned what the word human was and responded.
Yeah. Right. No, you're absolutely right. And again, I think I mentioned the architecture of the spaceships, by the way, that kind of had that sort of odd lookingness that it should fall over. So there's that added anxiety that you get from looking at that very simple design. I love how simple the aliens were. And again, it was done with the kind of simplicity. Like I said, the more I looked at it, the more I said, I think that's the back of a hand. It's hand with fingers and knuckles. You know, when you see it, it was simple enough that it doesn't tell us what their intention is. It doesn't try to imply anything by how they look. It's just a blank slate for us to sort of to put on them whatever we think is happening. So again, and that's so the different interpretations from the different countries I thought was fascinating and very, very well handled.
All around. I can sincerely not recommend this movie more. If you haven't seen it, what is wrong with you?
Exactly. Definitely check this one out.
All right, well, since we both said 10, neither of us have a Who Asked You, so goodbye, Who Asked You, this week. Only the second time in the podcast, I think, that the two of us did not have a Who Asked You. I think the other time was Rocky.
You might be right. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right.
So, for your consideration, Joe.
Again, a lot to really sort of applaud, and part of me wants to sort of go with the director, Denis Villeneuve, just so I can prove that we can finally pronounce his name, by the way.
69 podcasts later, finally got it.
I mean, again, this guy, as far as I can tell, he has yet to do something that is not fascinating. You know, I picked on the Blade Runner 2049 a little bit. But again, I think I like a lot of his work. Subsequent watches, we kind of softened up on it. You did. I know you did.
I did. Very much so.
But yeah, I mean, this guy is just a home run one after the other. But I decided to, instead of going for the obvious, I wanted to sort of shout out to Amy Adams. And again, somebody who really has not really impressed me very much until this. I think this one really did. You really did sort of see a kind of vulnerability with her. Incredibly intelligent, incredibly capable, and again, she has to sort of go up against some machine guns to save the day at the end, and she does. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, this is a strong female character, but wow. In fact, strong on multiple levels to be able to, as we talked about in great detail, to make the decisions that she made. So, yeah, I think she was able to convey that, all of that kind of tortured, that kind of painfulness that went hand in hand with being able to save the day. I mean, again, it was the very thing that gave her the ability to save this situation from going wrong. Also forced her into a very difficult choice in her life. So, I really had, and I think she really did get that across incredibly. So again, somebody who I really hadn't, paid much attention to, or I don't care for her as Lois Lane. Don't really a lot of things where I kind of feel like anybody could have done that. This, she really did. She performed spectacularly in this. So I wanted to just highlight that.
I kind of feel like she's an actress. I feel like she could have done better with Lois Lane with maybe better scripting. This kind of proves to me that maybe she does have the ability. And if you've ever seen the movie, did you ever see the movie The Enchanted, which was like her first big movie? She can do like the big, plucky, so on and so forth as well. So she has range. I think she's wonderful. And you're absolutely right for pointing her out.
Yeah.
Because as much as I appreciate, she was like not in like a top list, but like, oh, Amy Adams, she's pretty solid.
She was great in yeah, she was great in Catch Me If You Can. I kind of forget that that's her in that movie, you know. But yeah, she's great in that one too. So yeah, I mean, again, not saying that she's not a bad actress. I never thought she was bad. I just kind of felt like, oh yeah, fine, Amy Adams, whatever. But you know, again, this one really just this was her time to shine.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Capable up until this movie, I always thought she was capable and fine. Mm-hmm. This was like, no, we've got a serious actress here.
Yeah,
somebody give her a decent script and director to work with, please.
Agreed.
So excellent choice. All right. And I'm agreeing with you that there's just a lot of moments. Part of me does want to point out Denis Villeneuve, the writers, but I'm a slight twist. I have never in my life gotten as emotional about an ending of a movie the way that this movie got me. Never. So I'm for my consideration, the final montage. In most movies, this is your Deus ex machina to kind of like, get that last minute explanation as, there was this, there was that, and so on and so forth, but for most movies, it's like, oh, okay. Like this montage was kind of like, do you remember the movie Wild Things?
Yes.
With Denise Richards and
Matt Dillon and yes.
Matt Dillon. Okay, where basically over the credits it kind of goes over all the little tricks that she did in order to do like the perfect crime and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Now this movie did need this last moment to like fill in the last pieces of that. And it could have easily gone in that direction. I liked Wild Things, don't get me wrong, but I kind of felt like seeing that stuff at the end kind of ruined it a little bit for me. And if we ever cover that movie, I'll explain why. But here it worked flawlessly. I mean, seriously flawlessly. Like, I was in awe of the editing that was here. It didn't spoon feed, but it reminded you of everything that came before. And then it fills in the pieces that were missing. But does it in a subtle way. And then crushes your soul with its depth and its emotions that it conveys with visuals, music, and just a handful of spoken lines. That's brilliant filmmaking right there. And that doesn't work if you don't buy the first part of the movie. And I did.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. Well said, my friend.
Love this movie more than I can say. I seem to remember gushing talking about it with you and trying not to spoil it.
You did, and you did a great job, honestly. And I swear I'm finding myself a couple of times as we are doing this show. Frankly, as we're doing Reviews Without Remorse, there are one or two shows at least that I've come across. There's a few movies that I've come across that I think at first didn't grab me the first time around, and on subsequent viewings it got me. And I think I've sort of gushed about things that I might have seen in the past or didn't give it enough of a chance, and I think this is one. Again, it's not that I had a problem with it, but just I knew you adored it, and I saw it, and I think I was like falling asleep. I was like half asleep when I saw it or whatever, so I was like, oh yeah, it was good, whatever. But now I really do get it for what it really is.
I'm very, you know what? Nothing makes me happier than the idea that you've helped somebody find a movie and they turned out that they love. You know what I mean? I'll take my clunkers. For every person that you steer towards an Arrival, nobody's gonna quite believe me about my love of the movie Tales from the Crypt Demon Knight.
There you go.
And I don't blame you. That's a personal favorite of mine, but that's a story for another time.
Yep.
But
next week.
Next week, we're continuing with the alien invasion movies.
There you go. Another one that Dave recommended, and I have subsequently rewatched, and I will give my opinion about it.
Yep. Dave knows sci-fi, man.
I tell you, I swear to God, we could really do. When you talk about smart science fiction, boy, it's the last few years have really been kind to us.
Yeah. Awesome. Give me a world where Denis Villeneuve and Alex Garland are the writers and directors of science fiction movie. I want to live in that world.
There you go. Exactly.
But yes, next week we're going to be doing Annihilation, and I will again be doing the new Solo as Joe convalesces. We recorded this, as I said earlier. We recorded this a little bit early for Joe to...
I am probably in great pain as you listen to this.
Are you allowed to have ice cream?
Oh, yeah. I did the whole Cindy Brady thing. I'm going to sit there and just drink smoothies and not talk. And yeah.
I expect a lot of text from you then.
You got it.
So until next week, sir, thank you so much. Thank you so much for seeing this, and I'm so glad you enjoyed it. And God, it was great talking with you, especially about the ending.
Same here, my friend. And again, thank you for taking the helm this week and next week, and I will be back soon.
All right, so till next time, ladies and gentlemen, have a good night.
See you next week.
Thanks for listening to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe and Dave. Join us here every Thursday for a new episode. And be sure to check out the Reviews Without Remorse channel on YouTube and VidMe for spoiler-free reviews of new releases, as well as in-depth discussions of current and classic cinema. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider becoming a patron. You can find our page at patreon.com. As little as $1 a month goes a long way. All clips in this podcast are used for commentary and critique, and is considered fair use. No copyright infringement is intended.